These striking little penguins won't be found hanging around icebergs, but it's estimated that in just a few decades, these endangered birds won't be found anywhere at all. Their future is threatened by habitat loss, encroaching fishing operations, pollution, and predation. But it's disease that is killing penguin chicks before they even get a chance at life. This is the plight of New Zealand's yellow-eyed penguin, also known as the hoiho.
The term hoiho is the Maori term, or the Te Reo Maori name for the yellow-eyed penguin. So because the yellow-eyed penguin is such a long name, we just usually say hoiho. So I'll probably use that from now on.
This is Dr. Janelle Wieringa. Dr. Wieringa is a research fellow at Massey University, where thanks to Morris Animal Foundation funding, she's investigating why hoiho chicks are struggling in a race against time to save the species from extinction.
Unfortunately, we can't help all of them and work on all of them at the same time. So which factors can we work on that can potentially help to lessen the decline?
When Dr. Wieringa and her team set out to study struggling colonies, they knew of one disease that had already been observed regularly in the hoiho since the early 2000s. Diphtheric stomatitis is a severe respiratory disease with similar symptoms to the diphtheria infections that can affect humans.
So it causes oral lesions or sores in the mouths of the chicks. When it was first identified, it caused quite a high mortality. Usually about 50% of the chicks would die, typically either from starvation or inhalation of those plaques that would form over top of the sores.
But this disease was believed to be triggered by an unidentified virus, which is where Dr. Wieringa's team was able to start their work that soon became twofold.
We also had come across a new disease that had just emerged in 2019, and this disease was one that had caused the death of about 8 chicks that season. They did a postmortem on the chicks, and they usually would see nice pink fluffy lungs, but what they saw was lungs that were filled with blood. We call it respiratory distress syndrome because that's our best guess for kind of what is causing it.
Of the hoiho chicks that die now in each breeding season, respiratory distress syndrome is causing around 60 to 80% of those deaths.
These are two diseases that are causing significant both morbidity and mortality on the chicks on an already declining population.
To identify the virus causing respiratory distress syndrome, the team used metagenomic sequencing.
We basically try to sequence all the organisms that are replicating within a sample. For the chicks that had died, we had tissue samples that we were looking to see what was replicating because we assumed that most likely pathogens would be replicating to cause disease. What we did find was quite surprising. So we found a virus in really high abundance or quantity within those tissue samples, which is unexpected. And this virus is actually in the same family as another virus that we know a lot about. And the virus we know a lot about is chicken anemia virus. And that affects the poultry industry and it actually causes very similar lesions and pathology to what we were seeing in the penguin chicks. And then for the mouth lesions, the diphtheric stomatitis, we had swabs that we took from chicks that either had the lesions, didn't have the lesions, or had recovered from the lesions. And then we wanted to compare what types of organisms we found in those.
During this process, the team found chicks that were initially classified as healthy would begin developing lesions in a matter of days, which meant these so-called healthy chicks would need to be reclassified as pre-symptomatic.
What we did find that was potentially a good lead, and we want to look into further, is a virus within a family that's similar to probably the most common one that we know of is foot and mouth disease. So it's within that same virus family. We found it in all of the different categories of the chicks, but we didn't find it in healthy adults. I think the important thing now is actually finding a healthy chick population to compare to, and that's what we're in the process of looking into at this stage.
Now that the team has identified the novel viruses infecting hoiho chicks, doors will open for the potential development of a vaccine and new treatment plans that wildlife veterinarians can implement.
You know, when we answer some of these questions, we end up with 20 more. Are these viruses out there in other species? Are they in healthy penguins? Oh, are they different then? Are there management techniques such as a vaccine or other management strategies to support these chicks during their kind of critical time? I think that one of the challenging aspects of doing wildlife and conservation work is a lot of times you know how important the work is, but it's really hard to find the funding. This allowed us to do the project well and complete and actually get answers that were publishable, presentable, and transferable, hopefully to be able to improve the management. You know, we can't thank the Morris Animal Foundation enough for the ability to do that. Diseases and other types of conditions, they don't just affect humans, they affect animals and the environment, and looking at it from that perspective is really important.